So the COVID relief bill, I don't know if we have an update on this, but it appears that it's going to get pushed to Wednesday because they're still working on some amendments in the Senate. More and more, we're getting a sense of what's in this bill. We've, outlined it over the past weeks, and certainly in the Senate, we now know sort of the top line things. People are most, I think, interested in the checks. Again, that's $1,400. Cut off at $75,000, and then it diminishes down until your $80,000 annual income. It is 2019 or 2020 is the basis for that cutoff. And so if you had a good 2019 but a bad 2020, you either can file your taxes now, or when you file your taxes, they will kick money back to you after the fact. Just want to make that clear. There's also the $300 a month, essentially payments, a little bit more if your child is under 6. If your child is between 6 and 18, you get $300 a month in payments. They call it a refundable tax credit. It's a check.
Yes, it should be called a check. Should be called Biden bucks, as you put it the other day. But of course, the Democrats have to make it a refundable tax credit. Much sexier that way.
Mitt Romney's proposal was to pay it through the Social Security Administration as opposed to the IRS, and it would have sounded better that way. But they didn't do that. Who knows why? Well, I could guess, but who knows why?
But still, overall, very good proposal that's going to have an effect. It's basically UBI if you have kids. And it's, I would imagine, as you've hinted at, very likely to be renewed if the program is a success, if we think it
We hope
it
so.
will be.
1 year, there's certainly support. The Biden administration has signaled its support to extend this and make this permanent. And this would put us, on the lower end, but certainly at least in the same category as virtually every other Western industrialized country in the world. I think in Canada, you get $4,800 a year for a child. If you are a family of 4 making a combined income of approximately $50,000, you can get up to $20,000 in payments from the U.S. government out of this COVID relief bill. There's also tax breaks associated with unemployment insurance. If you got unemployment insurance this year, you will have your first 10,000 some odd dollars are going to be 10,200, I think it is, are going to be tax free. In other words, it'll keep a lot of people under in a much lower tax bracket, and that will save a lot of people money who were not anticipating getting taxed on their unemployment insurance. There's an expansion of Obamacare. Nobody involved in the exchanges now will pay more than 8.5% of their annual income.
COBRA subsidies.
There's full COBRA subsidies.
Which all of this is quite, bureaucratic, for the most part. I mean, the direct payments are not, and I would argue that the child tax credits aren't. But so this is not a sustainable framework. A lot of this is to address the economic fallout from the pandemic. But it signals that potentially, even though, yes, this is just in crisis mode, maybe they would be open to something more systemic down the line.
Well, and putting aside what they, the politicians are more open to, this is going to essentially train Americans, for lack of a better word, to expect more from their government, as they should. Right now, we have a system where we redistribute wealth upwards. That's simply the case. You look at the benefits that wealthy people get from society, which runs on tax dollars from all Americans, and that wealth is redistributed up. And this is, Americans are going to get a taste, albeit an insufficient one, of what it's like to have the government actually providing for people, particularly in the context of a crisis.
Which is often where these programs are born. Much of our social framework was born out of the Great Depression, and now we're seeing that the or social safety net, I should say, even though I don't love that term. And now we're seeing that the Biden administration isn't shying away from that trillion number, and the Republicans have zero pushback on this.
Zero pushback. The CBO estimated that a 64-year-old earning $58,000, according to the Washington Post, CBO estimated that a 64-year-old earning $58,000 would see monthly payments decline from $1,075 under current law, which is just an absurd amount of money to pay for health insurance, but is actually probably less than your average plan can cost you, down to $412 a month. Still more than it should be, and I imagine there's a bunch of co-pays with that, but that's going to make a difference in people's pockets. Another part of this bill is that it rescues union pensions that have been in crisis as well. Reported by the New York Times on March 7th, $86 billion taxpayer bailout for 185 union pension plans. I don't know why they say taxpayer bailout.
Yeah.
This money is being borrowed. We certainly could just write this stuff off if we could, but if we wanted to. But it makes it more dramatic and make it sound like the taxpayers are doing. The government doesn't do anything that can't be defined in that way. Whether it's you never hear the taxpayer funded mortgage interest deduction for people. That you don't hear about. But so the $86 billion will save about 185 union pension plans that are very close to collapse. It will ensure that more than 1 million retired truck drivers, retired retail clerks, retired builders, others will have retirement income. The bailout targets employer pension plans. And they say that, they phrase it as if it's like, a bailout for union pension plans. Well, these are companies that failed to fund these pensions that they had promised to fund. Employer pension plans that brings together companies with a union to provide guaranteed benefits. All told, 1,400 of the plans cover about 10.7 million active and retired workers. Like I say, in fields like construction or entertainment, where the workers move from job to job. As the workforce ages, an alarming number of the plans are running out of money. Both of these, the House and Senate measures, would give the weakest plans enough money to pay hundreds of thousands of retirees their full pensions for the next 30 years. This provision does not require a payback. So this is going to save the pensions of millions of working class people will be able to live their lives as they anticipated, and as they forego payment in exchange for future payments in the form of pensions that you see companies underfunding all the time, because they essentially will project, like, we're going to make this much money in the stock market, and then they don't, and then that's a problem. There is a debt relief for small farmers, which is going to help, in particular, black farmers who have been systemically deprived of land by the U.S. government. In fact, there was a big...
And we should also say, too, that the child poverty payments are going to disproportionately, in a good way, help Black and Latino families as well. So it's more targeted in that area.
Yep. I mean, this is, it's a good package. We don't have the $15 minimum wage, and it is a huge missed opportunity because this was a must-pass type of bill, and I don't know if the next one will be.
Yeah.
And as a political matter, at the very least, you're not doing $2,000 checks, and you're also eliminating millions of Americans who got a check the first 2 times around and didn't this time, You've expanded how many Americans are eligible because you're covering adult dependents this time around. But in terms of number of families who may be frozen out, you're talking in the millions because of a couple of Democrats who thought that they needed to brand themselves as being not fully on board with everything.
Yeah, that's the most important part, right? Is to make sure Joe Manchin can still appear as the West Virginia version of a maverick to his constituents.
That seems like the most important part to Joe Manchin.